Hello everyone. So we are back with another video of competitive programming. I hope the last video was really useful to us. So maybe this is the same. So today basically we will discuss about how the competitive programming has evolved in the last 10 years. Because as you have might be knowing me, so let me introduce first myself. I am Utkarsh Gupta. I completed my BTech in Computer Science and Engineering in 2019. And recently I used to do a lot of competitive programming in my college and maybe now also I do a lot of competitive programming. Currently, I'm working in InterviewBit as a software engineer instructor. And here today with us is Anshuman Sir. Anshuman Sir, please introduce yourself.
Hi guys. A little bit about me. I'm one of the co-founder at InterviewBit. Again, very active with programming when I was in college. I was fortunate to represent India twice in ACM ICPC World Finals. Um, and like some of the platforms that we have today weren't that active that time around. For example, Codeforces was
Hmm.
very new. Top Coder used to be very popular then. So I was actually very active on Top Coder. Top Coder, I was rated about 1985, which I don't know like how it relates to the ratings today. And in general, like I used to participate in so many different programming competitions that time around. Um, and we had this team which had the name as King's Gambit Labs. We won more than more than 50, I think more than 100 programming competitions.
Wow,
um,
nice.
that used to be our pocket money for spend expenditure. We would just go to a programming contest, participate, and then win some goodies.
Yeah, this is
So
one
yeah,
of the good advantage of being a computer programmer. I mean, you go to the contest, you win prize money, and that is a pocket money for college. This is same in our case as well. Now also, I guess people do this. But as I remember that when I did computer programming, there were a lot of platforms and resources available to me. Like Codechef was available, Codechef launch challenges were very famous. Then
like
Codeforces contests are really nice, and there are a lot of like video tutorial available on YouTube and the reading material. But I guess in past it was not the same, right? So how did you
yes.
manage to prepare that time?
So yeah, I mean actually the things have evolved. Like there's just so much content lying around. I remember I'm not sure whether a lot of you know, but there is the CTO of Gojek, Ajay Gore. He comes from an accounting background, and he was discussing. He graduated sometime around 2003, 2002, and he
Hmm.
was discussing how hard it was to prepare for programming back in 2002, 2003, because there was no online resource whatsoever. The only way to learn programming was you go to a library, you pick up this huge book, and then you start reading, and then you might so laptops again weren't that popular back then. So you would, once you learn, then you go to a lab, and then you write that piece of code. If you have a doubt, then you go the next day to the lab after reading the book again, and then
Oh,
you correct things, right? So this that was a such a complicated and slow process. We've come a huge way since then, right? Like everybody almost has uh, either a laptop or a mobile phone.
hmm.
You have walking computing machinery right with you almost all of the time. And there's so many different people who create videos on how to learn stuff. I mean, in my time, which was again in 2009, 2010, actually I started my engineering sometime around 2006. So again, like the video resources weren't there. The uh, the two things that I used to refer very frequently was there were these top coder tutorials. So top coder had a bunch of programmers who would write blog on certain concepts, so I would go through that. And to be very honest, like understanding blogs which were written by really great programmers at that time wasn't very easy to understand, because they would start from a very different level. um,
Hmm.
I mean, so when they would explain dynamic programming, they would assume that you already know a lot, and then they would start from there. um, the other thing that we used to refer to was there was this Wikipedia site called algorithmist.com. So we would refer to that to refer to certain concepts. But a lot of our learning actually came from participating in some of these contests, looking at the editorials, hearing about a new term, and then like googling about it, finding some blog here or there. It was very scattered, so there was no single place. Geeks for Geeks wasn't as evolved back then. Neither was there was no obviously interview bit back then. There was no there was no lead code. There was no even hacker rank wasn't there. So no hacker earth. So you would Google, will find some blogs. Some blogs were okay, some blogs were not so okay. So you would just infer certain things. A lot of my learning actually came from talking to different people, right? So one of the advantages was that in Top Coder there would be so many different good coders. So one way of learning at that point of time was you would reach out to the good coders there, the top coders there, and you would try to ask for concepts from them, and they, I mean, mostly the community was very helpful, so they would be happy helping. They would be happy even sending some piece of their code, which would make the concept even clearer. But now
But
things are so much better.
yes, I mean, you mentioned about the reading resources. So video resources were not available at that time, right?
Yes,
The
video
video.
resource. No.
I mean, in my time, I can even study when I was traveling. So if I had to travel from my home to my college, that time also I can just open any video on my phone and then I can watch it.
Like
So resources, I
video
mean,
resource. Yeah,
like video resources are really helpful now, which I can say, yes.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
as you mentioned, the platforms are very less. So as I remember in my case, I used to do a lot of practice, maybe on Spot or Codechef long challenges or Codeforces, because what I believe was that if I do questions and submit questions, then only I can say that if I have I have understood a concept or not. So if I want to practice a particular concept, let's say dynamic programming, then I will pick up questions of dynamic programming on any platform and I try to solve as many questions as possible. But
Right.
as you mentioned, that time the computers were not that easy accessible, and then you have to read, then go to a lab, and then you have
Oh,
to again come
by the
back
way,
if there are doubts.
the read back into lab, all of that was back in 2003, which was not my time. This was
Okay.
I was counting the experience of Ajay Gore, who was again who shifted from an accountant background to a technology background, and today like he's doing so well that he's the CTO of Gojek. Um,
Oh,
I was still more fortunate because things had evolved a little by the time I went to college. That being said, video resources are super helpful. There were no video resources. There were still sites like Spodge. So Spodge was the most popular programming website. So if at all, let's say you had to practice on problems from dynamic programming,
mhm.
you could go to Spodge. You could just filter by. Again, Spodge didn't classify the problem, so there were a bunch of these programmers who had written their own software to classify problems on Spot. So
Oh,
then you can pick up like you could click on dynamic programming. You'll find certain problem links on Spot. You click on that and then you go to Spot and then you solve it. Very similarly, like there were these ACM ICPC regionals um, archives. So, for example, you could say that, hey, show me the problems that were asked in ACM ICPC regionals of Kanpur in 2005, and you would get the problem set. So you could try solving that just in case you were comfortable with the topic.
so some resources are available. I mean, that is
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, it wasn't zero. I mean, I again, I really can't imagine how Ajay Gore would have learned his stuff because things were more difficult back then. By the time I came to college, things were easier to manage.
One thing might have been same now and then that it was fun. It is too much
Yeah,
fun right now. Maybe back then also it was too much fun, right?
absolutely, absolutely. It's always fun, and to be very honest, competitive programming should only be done when you really really enjoy it because it
Mm.
demands a lot of time. It demands a lot of practice. Um, and when you don't enjoy it, then you'll not, I mean, you'll not really enjoy putting in those many number of hours to
Yeah.
excel at competitive programming.
Nowadays, which I can see is some people do computer programming for the purpose of getting jobs, and sometimes people do computer programming for different purposes. I mean, one is getting job, one is like if they want to increase their rating so that they can write it in the resume and stuff like that. So, what was the purpose back then for doing computer programming apart from enjoying? Is there any other purpose? I mean, was it helpful in any other way?
So actually, I'll recount my story. So, um, when I graduated, I had offers from Google in Mountain View, and I had offers from Facebook in Palo Alto, US. And the only reason I believe I had those offers was because I was approached by both of those recruiters when I was at the World Finals. Um, Actually, most employers are known to gate crash ACM ICPC World Finals event and try to poach coders from there. So, and then this was the time when a Google or a Facebook would never hire directly from India to their US offices. They started. I mean, Microsoft would do that very rarely. Facebook actually started doing it more formally starting 2011 because they had a bunch of guys like us who had joined in 2010, and the whole breed of people who were hired directly from India, they were doing decently well. So they thought it. Plus, like, it was just post recession, so getting H1B visa was very simple. So both Google and Facebook started hiring formally from India in 2011, but by 2009 2010, like, hiring directly from India to the US was extremely rare. Um,
So
so
ICPC totally impacted your life. I mean, ICPC changed your life.
ICPC helped me open those opportunities. Um, that being said, again, like, one of the confusions a lot of people have is that if you want to get into a Google or a Facebook, competitive programming is the only way. That's not true.
Yes.
That's I would say that's not true, because a lot of times I talk to people, and they're very interested in competitive programming only because if I get good at it, then I'll be able to crack Google, or if I could get good at it, then I'll be able to crack Facebook. So do it for fun. You probably don't need to. I mean, competitive programming is an overkill for a Google or a Facebook. You don't need that amount of expertise in algo DS to get to just an employment at an Facebook or Google.
Yes. I
But it
mean,
did help open up a lot of opportunities. Yes.
yes. I mean, for justifying this, I mean, maybe you can tell if very hard level algorithms were used in Facebook when you were there. I mean, was a hard level algo used, like persistent segment tree or heavy lighting composition, something like this was used?
Yes. So um, the first problem that I faced, which actually required a hard algo, was so Facebook had this team called Facebook Places, and within Facebook Places, when you go to check in, so let's say, I mean, you could go to a restaurant and you can check in into a restaurant. You can go to into a um, um, into, let's say, a club, and then you can check in into a place, restaurant, or a club, right? So the way Facebook would detect where you are is, again, like, the phones weren't very advanced back then, so they would give you an approximate location in terms of latitude and longitude, and then you had to find the nearest business points to that, k nearest points or businesses closer to that. And that is a very classical problem in algorithms, that given a 2D space which has a lot of points, given your point, you figure out what are the k nearest neighbors for me. I mean, if you just Google for k nearest neighbors, you'll be able to find it, and for that you use KD trees. So did
Right.
something very similar at Facebook as well, for finding out the k nearest locations when you were about to check in.
So basically, computer programming helps even after getting a job. That is really
Yes,
nice.
it does. It does. Again, like, you wouldn't find a lot of use for it. For example, like, on a daily basis, like, for most of the code that you write, that doesn't involve competitive programming. But there are, like, certain instances which would require you to know certain things. In fact, in certain cases, you might even be implementing a research paper because it's just relevant to your field, relevant to the problem you're solving.
Very nice. About the competitions, I mean, nowadays we have a lot of competitions about computer programming, like Google Code Jam is currently going on. We have Facebook Hacker Cup. We have ICBC was been there before also. We have Google Hash Code and a lot of other competitions like the Snackdown organized by Codechef. Back then, were there international competitions that active?
So the most popular one was obviously ASM ICPC that every college would participate in. And Google Code Jam had just started, but since it was Google, it got popular really, really quickly. Um, and when I was just graduating, then Codechef did its first version of Snackdown, um, which was slightly unfair because I
You were
was
more.
involved with setting up the initial version of Codechef to a major degree.
Mm,
Um, but like the first version of Codechef Snackdown happened then. It was very India centric in 2010, and with its later version, it became more and more international. But the history of Codechef, if you look, it launched with competitions which were very India centric,
mm,
prizes for every. The focus was get Indian coders more interested into programming. They were
mm,
very, very aggressive and very, very lucrative prizes for people who were participating from India. Um, in sometime in 2011, Bhavin launched the Go for Gold initiative, which was let's encourage our programmers to go for an ICPC gold medal, which India has never won. Um, and his thing was that look, if you're able to better the rank, the best rank that point of time was 28 by anybody at ECMI CBC World Finals. So his thing was that if you were able to better it, then you'll definitely get a job at Direct Eye without even any kind of interview. So very bold offer, and he had a bunch of um,
I mean, they
uh,
also provide offer even to school students, which I have heard. I mean, if you are very good in IOI and you get a gold medal or silver medal, they give even the offer to a school student because they believe that if a student has won a gold medal in IOI back in school, he or she will be very good in college and will be a
right,
good programmer.
right.
This I remembered when I went for ICPC regionals. The coach chef guy mentioned to me that this is
Actually,
what we have.
IOI is very widely respected internationally, even within India. There are certain colleges like Triple IT Hyderabad that
Hmm.
looks at your IOI performance, and if you've done well there, they don't even look at. I mean, they don't care about your IT JE rank or whatever. I mean, they are okay directly interviewing you for admissions.
Hmm.
Somebody mentioned in the comments that Facebook Hacker Cup is also there. So Hacker Cup back in 2009 2010 um, wasn't that popular. I mean, as in it hadn't even started. It started sometime in 2011, um, and it started because like Google Code Jam was also extremely popular. Like was able to get a lot of students involved and the best of the coders to participate.
Hmm.
And
Somewhere,
and actually, I wanted to give one more example.
hmm.
Um, in general, like if you're doing really well at competitive programming, there is a higher chance of you succeeding in the career as well. For example, in my time, the best coder was a person with the handle as AC Rush. His complete name was Lao Tian Cheng. Today he runs a company which builds self-driving cars in China, and he's already raised, if I'm not wrong, somewhere close to 50 or 60 million dollars to build that technology. Um, Similarly, like the Petter was, I'm not sure whether Petter still participates, but like Petter was again like the direct rival of AC Rush back then, Petter Metichev, and he was working at Google in Russia. Uh, Again, a big celebrity there too.
Peter is, I guess, currently in Switzerland,
Oh,
having
okay,
their conference. Yeah,
okay,
he still participates. I mean, it's really nice that people, after even getting a job, they still participate in competitions. That means they really enjoy it,
correct.
and that is really okay. We have one question from Sanjeev. Only college students can apply for HMICPC, or person working on company having 1 to 8 year experience can participate. Sanjeev, I don't think college students can participate in HMICPC, but you can participate in competition like Code Jam or Facebook Hackathon or maybe Snackdown, I guess.
Yeah,
Right?
I think what he meant was only college students right now can participate for ACMI CPC. People working in jobs cannot participate in ACMI CPC.
Yeah. We have one question. One. Very common question. How to improve CP? What is your best advice to someone?
How do you improve in competitive programming? I mean, there are uh, various variants of my advice, but like one which is very common is that CP requires a lot of practice.
Mm,
Uh, when you believe, I mean, if you look at people who are good at CP,
mm,
the one or two very common traits is that one, they will write very complex code and they'll get it right in the first go. Their code
mm,
almost never has any bugs.
mm,
And that, to be very honest, I'll tell you this: no matter how brilliant you are, it doesn't come without practice. You have to be solving and like writing complex code over and over and over again, and then that's how you get really good at writing code which works the first time. And it helps you in your job as well, because if you're able to write code that succeeds in one go, then you end up saving a lot of time that you would otherwise spend on debugging.
mm,
And in a developer cycle, usually you write code for 1 hour and then you debug for the next 5 hours. So just the fact that you can write the code correctly in one go makes you 5 or 6 times more efficient than your rivals.
mm.
The other
Right.
thing is, competitive programming is, in my opinion, what I noticed over a period of years is a combination of various. I mean, so the number of patterns to solving a problem, they are limited. Um, and with practice you get used to those patterns of problem solving. um, but like it is all about building the basics right, and then like understanding what those patterns are. What I mean by that is, let's say if you're looking at a problem of graph problems would usually fall in 5 or 6 different buckets.
Mm,
um, if you understand graphs really well, if you understand the concepts of those buckets really well, then looking at a problem you'll be able to bucketize it really quickly. So it's only important to have the right basics and a lot of practice.
mm.
Always be ready to learn. And um,
Yes, and one point I can add is that we can never be perfect in CP. So no matter how good you are, you always have a scope of improving. So as long as you want to improve yourself, there is always some scope. So keep practicing and keep preparing for even hard topics. Because when I remembered was that when I used to practice for hard topics like fast Fourier transformation or heavy light decomposition, I used to practice some amount of questions. Then if I do not practice those questions for let's say 2 or 3 months, then I used to forget them. Then I had to first revise them before coding it for the next time. So practicing continuously, I guess, is really helpful. If we take a break, we need some revision, I can say. Okay, we have one question that how to filter the sites. So, sir, with so many sites to practice coding, which one and how to use sites to become good at CP? I mean, I guess back then there were
like,
not a lot of sites available.
yeah,
So whichever you get, you have to select that.
I guess like Utkarsh can give a different variant of the answer, which is more relevant to today's world. I can give an answer which was relevant to those that time. Um,
Hmm,
in general, I noticed like there were two phases: phases when you were learning and phases when you were competing, when you were showing off. If you want to show off, then probably a Codeforces or a Top Coder, that's the right platform. But what you
hmm,
would expect is like if you're just participating on and on and on at Codeforces, there is not a lot of learning that will happen in that period,
hmm,
because mostly you're focusing on implementing what you already know,
hmm,
and getting good at implementation. The second part is the second phase is learning, and those phases I would typically go to a um, um, algorithmist or a spoj, where I would look at a category of problems. I'll try to study that topic. I'll pick some problems from that topic. For example, if I was studying DP, I would study certain patterns. I'll pick up easy problems from DP. I'll try to solve that, see if I'm getting comfortable. If I am, then I move to medium ones. I know that I'll always have access to a tutorial somewhere or the other. So if I am not able to solve it, I go and look at the editorial. I figure out, hey, actually, maybe this is a new pattern of solving which I learned today. So there are two phases you'll always find yourself in. One is learning. One is um, showing off. So depending on where you are, like the sites could differ. Again, Utkarsh, please feel free to add the ones
yes.
where.
Nowadays, as I mean, we all know that there are a lot of sites available, and I mean, there are a lot of ways to learn CP. Because some people prefer to read books, some people like to read blogs, some people like to watch videos. So, first thing is about the concepts. I mean, it's on your personal interest. Let's say if you are interested in reading books, there is a very good book, CLRS. You can try that. For videos, they have a lot of video sources available. About the platforms, I mean, even if you read or see videos, there is always a scope for practicing using the question, because you have to solve as many questions of a particular topic, then only you will be good at it. Now, how to filter which site is that, so it is again a personal interest, because there are a lot of sites available. So when I started, I had a lot of options like HackerRank, HackerRank, Spots, Codechef, Codeforces, A2OJ, and a lot of sites. But I tried all of them, and then I realized that I cannot be parallelly active in all of them. So I had to filter them out. So I was only active on HackerRank and Codechef back then, and then later on I started with Codeforces. So my advice is that just try all of the sites and then see whichever is best suiting you, and then pick two or three maximum among them, because you cannot be active on all the platforms. That being said, you should not just ignore the other sites. Let's say if some contest is going on Codeforces and you don't do Codeforces right now, maybe you can give that contest, because if you are free and if you participate in a contest, that helps you improving your problem solving skills. But for practice, I can say that just select best two or three which you like and then just focus on them, because practicing on all because is not possible parallelly. This is what I realized. Yeah. Okay. So next question we have is this: could you talk about the long process for one to start and eventually become a good computer programmer? Where to start, what sources to follow, and all. So in a long-term process, how should someone start?
In a long-term process, I mean, the initial focus has to be on just understanding the concepts. So
Hmm.
start with sites that, and the first part is just maybe understanding one language really well. Let's say C, C++, Java, Python, whatever you find most comfortable.
Hmm.
Once you do that, then you move on to the basics of data structures, algorithm. Um, um, for that, again, like either you can pick up InterviewBit, maybe solve a bunch of problems there, because the problems there are supposed to be more targeted towards interviews, which means that they will not get very advanced. They are supposed to be basic to medium problems. So get through that first, so that you build some amount of understanding of those concepts. You
Hmm.
become comfortable with those concepts. Once you have done that, then like, and then you know which topics are actually there. um, there might be certain additional topics that become relevant for competitive programming. For example, there's this entire field around computational geometry. There's a within graphs as well. There is min cut max flow, articulation point bridges, stuff like that. Those you would learn at later point of time, but as long as you can understand the topics just on interview bit really well, and you can solve problems from there, you're already a very decent coder, even in the competitive programming circles. Um, I mean, to be honest, like as long as you can do DP really well, you're already a very very high rated coder. Um,
Yes, I mean, it's a very hard topic. So if you can do it really well, it means you can do multiple stuff very well. Yes, right. And I can also add in this that you should start with like prepare a list of topics which are very basic and then focus on them. Because what happens is, let's say if I am new to computer programming and I participate in some competition and I am stuck at some question. Let's say if I participate in code first competition and I have solved ABC and I'm stuck at D problem. Now I try on solving it, but I was unable to solve it. And later on, I saw there is a complex, maybe complex algorithm used, which I was unable to understand even after reading a tutorial. So this kind of scenario can arise. So if you are starting with computer programming, then don't focus on complex algorithms in the start itself. First, study the basics. As Anshuman sir mentioned, the interview platform has all the basic concepts covered. Once you are confident in the basic concepts, then you should switch to the complex stuff like maybe persistent segment tree or heavy light decomposition, that kind of stuff. Because if you start with them, that then it becomes really, really hard for you. Because I remembered I did one Codechef long challenge. There was a question of persistent heap, I guess, or try, I don't know. And then I started reading. Then I tried solving it. I spent around 4 days, but because I was not sure about how try works, because I have never solved try before, I was unable to do it even after that. So after this, what I did was I studied try. I studied the concept. I studied solved multiple questions on try, and then I came back to that particular question about persistent try, and then I solved it. So this should be, I guess, a good strategy to start with the basic for every topic, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, absolutely.
okay. So next question we have is, what is the level of CP problem compared to Google interview questions? I mean, I can tell about
Um,
Google. Yeah.
yeah, I guess Utkarsh, you are
Okay.
better equipped to answer that
So
question.
based on my experience, the computer programming is little high compared to the interview preparation. Even for Google, if you are a good computer programmer, you will see that interview questions are really easy for you. If I compare it with Codeforces, it will be Codeforces division to D level, if I will say that. And I can say that because when I were asked the questions, I was pretty sure that how to solve them, and I was easily able to tell them the concept and the solution very easily because I was very good in computer programming. So computer programming is little bit high level compared to any interview, be it Google or maybe Facebook. I mean, Anshuman sir can tell about Facebook level.
Yeah, actually, Facebook is never focuses on problems that are very intense when it comes to algorithms. They focus on very basic DS algo problems. The
Hmm.
one thing that they look for there is how are you thinking about the problem and how good are you at executing the code for that problem. They really, really care for coding accuracy. I mean, so the fact that I said, right, like getting the code right the first time,
Hmm.
being able to read through a snippet of code and really understand in one go what is happening there, if there is a bug hiding there somewhere. Um, and just like your thought process, right? Like taking a problem and being able to break it down to smaller problems and then making some progress there, that is what they value. They never concern themselves with very complex algorithms. So for example, um, I mean, most of their problems would just focus around very basic, maybe a BFS or a DFS, very basic dynamic programming, um, or like just linked lists or just pure arrays, just running certain loops or maybe hash map, hashing certain things. That's mostly all.
Hmm. Yes. Okay, so next question we have is how to handle the pressure of CP. As the level scales up, pressure also ups exponentially. So, sir, how are you able to handle that pressure?
Uh, again, like depends on the outcome that you want. If the outcome that you really want is that you want to become one of the best coders around, you probably want to ace a world finals or like get into a world finals, then that requires a lot of effort. And I won't deny that, because I remember like when we were preparing, we used to code for continuously for like 12, 14 hours. There was this lab where we would just do night outs because that was the quietest time. People wouldn't come and disturb you.
Hmm.
And then we would just practice a lot. Just well, before we went to world finals, we made sure that there were all of the previous ICPC regionals problem, we had almost given a try to almost all of them.
Hmm.
um, so I mean, if you're looking to scale up like at the highest level, yes, there is a lot of hard work and sweat. As long as you're just doing it for fun, as long as you're only doing it for hobby, if you're doing it to get better at programming, or maybe just like being able to crack job offers, or being good at, like, let's say a regular development work, then it need not be that stressful or um, um, intense. Um, you could
Uh,
probably just all you require then is just consistency, so that every day you're getting better a little by little.
how about the pressure during the contest? Let's say whenever you were participating in ICPC regionals, which
Right.
was basically the qualification round for the world finals, you might be having a lot of pressure in your head that you have to be in top two, otherwise it will be very difficult to qualify. So how to handle that 5 hours pressure? Because that 5 hours is like the only time in which you can show yourself. I mean, how good you are. So how
Right.
did you handle that pressure?
Actually, a lot of stress and pressure comes from being unorganized. So in contests, as long as you're able to organize things, as in, for example, when we went to ICPC regionals, we were a 3-member team, and every person had their responsibilities very clearly defined.
Hmm.
When I first went to world finals, my one of my teammates, Ajay Somani, he was responsible for coding,
Hmm.
and my other teammate, he was responsible for making sure that we are attempting the easiest problem first and not directly jumping onto a hard problem, because you want to get the easier problems out of the way, then you want to move on to the harder and medium problem, because that would take more time.
Hmm.
And I was responsible for taking the easy problems and then coming up with a solution for that, and then like passing that on to Somani, so that he can start coding, and maybe I can discuss that with Somani if at all it's not very clear. um, but if you organize it, if you have a very defined path to follow, then the stress element comes down. And always, I mean, and the other thing is that you have to realize, which also comes with practice, is key. The moment you get nervous, the moment you get stressed, uh, your productivity actually goes down by 20-30%. So taking stress or like getting nervous is only going to do you harm. It's not going to help you. The key is to remain calm, think about it. It's okay if you get one problem, two problem. That's fine. um, no need to rush. When you rush, you create bugs. If you create bugs, then like on the same problem you'll be stuck for 1 more hour. So
Mm.
so just be very organized, be very calm, think through stuff carefully, and then get it done. That's what
Mm.
helps.
Yes, I mean, I totally agree with this because I can remember my scenario when I went for the first time. I picked up, we did solve some easy questions, then I picked up a question which was that time on the fourth number based on the submission count. And later on it became seven, then I spent around 2 hours to solve that. But if I would have solved some other questions which were easy, that would have been little better for me. I
Right.
mean, yes, organized is a right way to solve any contest or any particular question. I mean, it also helps in anything. I mean, if we are doing anything in a team, as a team, maybe doing a startup also, then if we organize and if we are sure with what our responsibilities are and we divide them fairly, then I guess we can be successful in anything, not
Right.
just a team contest.
Yeah, just an organized plan helps you execute better. The
Yes.
more unorganized you are, the more work it becomes, the more stressful it gets. And having done a startup, I can attest to the fact, because we were and we have been unorganized a bunch of times, and it just gets very stressful. So
I mean, midway because unexpected things might happen, right?
yeah, yeah,
In a startup, that I can say is unexpected things happen. So you have to just change the plans multiple times because whatever you plan, it gets modified multiple times, and maybe because of that pressure. But handling pressure there might have helped you handling pressure here as well, right?
right, right.
Okay, we have one more question. How can we learn constructive algorithms and interactive problems? Were there any interactive problems back then? I mean, nowadays in CodeJam, and
Actually, so interactive problems were majorly introduced by CodeJam, Google CodeJam.
hmm,
Back before that, like interactive problems were not at all popular. So I had very little exposure to them.
hmm,
Uh, and in fact, like even the long contest format that Codechef does, where it has this problem which doesn't have a definite solution, you just work with approximate algorithms to get as closer to the
solution.
solution as possible. That format also was very new. I mean, that was introduced sometime in 2010. So I didn't witness a lot of interactive and constructive algorithms. Maybe Utkarsh, you are the right person to guide
Yes.
people on that.
Yes, I solved like a lot of constructive algorithm interactive. For interactive problems, recently on Google CodeGem qualifier, we had a very nice problem. So for interactive problem, what I can say is that just try taking one small test case and then try to work on that. How will, if you give a query, then how will the program respond to you? So whenever I face an interactive problem, what my strategy is to take a small test case and work through it. That how my steps are going to work, and then I can realize what actually the code is showing or what actually the code expects. Because when you read the interactive problem on the first go, it becomes a little complicated to understand. Right. For the constructive algorithms, I can say that in the Hacker Cup, we have only one question, which should not have any defined algorithm to solve, and you have to give your best solution. It is similar to what we have in Google Codechef long challenges. In Codechef long challenges, we always have one question which does not have any guaranteed solution, and you have to give your best. So that I faced in hash code. So in hash code, we were given around 4 hours to solve just one problem, which does not have any defined solution. So we have to give our best. So my strategy was to give my best as soon as possible. So I used to code. I coded one solution which was very bad in the initials, and then I submitted it based on the input test cases. I get some points. Then I improved it over and over again. What I used to do is I used to see a small piece of my code, and used to see that how can I improve on that part of the code. So basically, one good strategy is that if you are coding and if you are making multiple functions for anything which makes sense to you, then it becomes easy for you to optimize your code because then you can just see that particular function and then you can realize how can I optimize that particular function. So that helped me a lot in hash code, and because of that, maybe I achieved first rank in India because I used to optimize every function as much as possible, and then ultimately I was able to reach the final point which I got in the end. So if you code your initial very bad maybe algorithm, but if you code it in a good way, so that you can see which part you can optimize over and over again, that I can say is really helpful in those algorithms. because there is no guarantee solution, so you cannot guarantee that okay, my solution will give me best answer, but it may give you better answer than the previous one. That is what I can say. Okay, we have one question from Sanjeev. What should be the correct way to use interview platform for improvement in CP as well as for company intern and placements? So, sir.
Right. Again, InterviewBit is supposed to be the building blocks for CP, and is actually majorly targeted at cracking interviews for internships and full-time job offers. So if you just consume the content in order in which it is intended. So the way we had designed InterviewBit in the beginning was that, one, let's let's arrange the topics so that if you are on level, then it only uses the concepts of levels smaller than this. So if you're going level wise, then you always know all of the concepts required to solve a problem because you've already learned those concepts. The second thing was that within the site we had this concept of a bucket. If you remember, I just said like most problems in a particular topic have very defined set of patterns that they follow. They're very limited set of patterns. So what we said was like, let's look at all of the problems that have been asked in a particular topic, and let's create a list of patterns that exist, and let's put them in a single bucket. So as long as you're solving one problem for that pattern and you're able to understand that pattern, and then like you're able to implement or like apply that to other problems which use very similar pattern, you're good to go. You can move ahead to the next bucket. So if it is consumed in order and in the covering all of the patterns of problem solving, um, you'll soon realize that even when you see a very new problem, you can apply one of those patterns to that new problem, and you can solve the new problem. And like that is mostly enough for a just from a job interview standpoint. Competitive programming, as I said, is a superset of all of this, because there's so many different concepts that are probably relevant for competitive programming, but they're not very relevant for interview preparation. As I said, like anything to deal with computational geometry, for example, convex hull, or anything to do with um, let's say I can pick any topic, and there would be something or the other that, for example, even when you do string search, like creating suffix arrays or suffix tries, that is not in the scope of interviews, but like that might be in the scope of um, the competitive programming era, right? So I would say like the site is intended primarily for job prep, and that is a building block. I mean, that is a subset of the competitive programming thing. So you can get started from there. Helps you crack most product companies as well. But if you're really interested in competitive programming, then post that, once you finish the basic building block, then you have to move on to a different site which probably covers the remaining topics as well.
I can give my example that when I was in college, when I got introduced to InterviewBit, I liked it very much because in those we have limited set of questions for every topic. So initially, when I was preparing or I was doing competitive programming, I was very like not at all organized. I was just solving any random question, studying any random topic from anywhere, and then solving questions based on those topics. But then I searched for, because the reason being is that if you see any platform, if you search any topic, let's say dynamic programming or let's say maths, then you have a lot of questions. I mean, infinite number of questions, and you cannot solve all the questions in one go. But when I got to know about interview bit and I searched it, there were limited set of questions which were really nice. So my first strategy was to complete all those questions so that I have a basic idea of all the topics which are there, like basic topics which are there, so that I can move ahead on hard problems for the same topic. So I remember that I studied graphs first time in interview, I guess. Then only I started difficult questions on graph after that. So it really helps for like introducing yourself to any basic topic. I can say that. And I really like that feature of giving hints. If you are stuck, we have hints coming up telling us, okay, just take some help and then solve the question. I mean, it's like someone helping us on the way. That is really nice. I mean, I enjoyed that. So Sanjeev, I can say it's a really good way to do. Okay, the next question we have from Vishal is competitive programming beneficial only for students, or can we in job can also benefit from it? So yeah.
Again, as I said, like competitive programming should be done more of as a hobby. competitive programming is an overkill for what you would typically end up doing in a job, or what would be required for in a job interview. So if you're doing competitive programming with the intention that it's going to help me crack better job offers, or it's going to help me be more efficient at my current job, then that's not really true. It's just maybe a lot more effort you could do. You could focus on other things that will make you better at your existing job. uh, People, and that is why you'll see most programmers, they're very active doing competitive programming while in their college, but when they get into a job which is challenging and would require a lot of them, that they tend to become lesser and lesser active uh, in participating in competitive programming contests. So I would say, like, if you're in a job, maybe just focus on learning the uh, basic data structures and basic algorithms, because that helps you see the code that you're writing. Why is it efficient and why is it not efficient? And when you're writing code for really huge systems which are just running on these thousands of servers, small optimizations that you do actually end up saving a lot of cost. I mean, while my software might be running on thousands of machines, it is possible I do certain optimizations and now I can reduce that to 500 machines. Saving 500 machines is a few $1 million of saving, right? So that is what you should use the knowledge of basic DS algo for, and just to understand um, why why how things work the way they work. I mean, for example, I was given one example. There was this friend of mine who was working at one of the big service companies, and in a conversation he was asked, like, how would you sort an array, and like his answer was very simple: hey, I would just do sort vector dot begin comma vector dot end. But the person did not know how sorting actually worked inside, and what is the time that is taken for sorting a list of numbers. When you do not have that understanding, when you do not understand the cost associated with every single line of code that you're writing, then you might end up writing very inefficient, very expensive code, which becomes technical debt. I mean, you'll keep hearing technical debt very often in your current workplace. It becomes like a technical debt. So to ensure that you are not just a person who can build things, but who can build things the right way, you need to understand data structures and algorithms,
Yes.
but not
Okay.
competitive programming.
Yes, I mean, uh, to a certain level, programming helps, but I guess very hard algorithms are not used very often in any industry.
Right.
But to a certain level, it is really helpful. That is true. Okay, then we have a question: how to be able to come up with the clever observation and intuition for any problem, and then to be able to rightly choose the algorithm or data structure that will get an AC. I mean,
If
there is a
if there
hurdle
was
for it.
if there
Yeah.
was a formula for that, then everybody would be better Mitrichev and tourist.
Yeah.
Um, but look, I mean, as I said, like, with topics, there are uh, very limited set of patterns to solving problems.
Hmm.
The right way to do, or like, to be able to build up that intuition is doing a lot of homework.
Hmm.
Um, because there are these examples given, right? Like, there is a painter who makes a painting in just, let's say, 5 minutes and charges $1 million for it. But
Hmm.
he charges $1 million because he spent like last 20 years practicing on how to build that masterpiece in 5 minutes, right?
Yes.
Same goes with competitive programming as well. You can't just believe that I'll learn something in 5 minutes or 10 minutes and be able to apply and then become really good at anything. It would require some amount of homework. The
Hmm.
good news is that there are these topics that are very well defined for you. There are these patterns that are very well defined for you. But it would require a lot of hard work and homework to go and study those, practice a lot of problems, try to figure out what is the pattern there, and slowly you get into the mode where you start seeing the patterns for yourself. You read a problem and it becomes clearer immediately. But that immediately process takes a lot of homework.
Yes, I mean, totally agree. We require a lot of practice to be good at certain topics so that in the first attempt you get an AC. I mean, in the start, I guess it is very difficult to get an AC in the first attempt because we somehow miss some or the other corner cases. And over, when we do certain mistakes, if we learn from those mistakes, that if we have done something mistake and I learn from that mistake that that will never happen in future, then over and over again, if we do multiple mistakes, then there will be a certain state of time where we will just solve that question because the mistakes which were supposed to be there, we already have done it and we already know how to check those mistakes on our current solution. So yes, that homework is really, really important if you want to just add an AC in the first attempt and you want to solve the question very fast. I mean, that is why we require a lot of practice before any competition, like maybe ICPC, Code Jam, Hash Code. You cannot just go in the competition because you know the structure and algorithms. You have to solve a lot of problems based on those so that if you do some mistakes, you just resolve them in the practice only and not in the real contest. Because if you are stuck in a real contest, then it costs you a lot. I mean, if you do 10 minutes delay in one question, it accumulates over and over for the next couple of questions, right? I mean, for every minute delay in every question, that is costing your rank. So if we do a lot of practice, we do a lot of mistakes in those practice, we overcome those mistakes, then in competitions, we can get an AC in the first attempt. That is what I think is the right thing to do. Okay, the next question is little interesting that how difficult it is for an experienced guy to do good in CP. So Anshuman sir, when you were in Facebook, were you getting time to do CP or you left CP for a certain amount of time?
No, actually, I tried for the first 6 months, and then I realized that it's very hard to take out time because you might have just joined a competition, something is going on, and then some production issue happens. Obviously, your job is more important than the contest that is going on. So you leave that contest and then you directly go and try to fix the issue that occurred.
Right.
So over a period of time, I made a very obvious choice that hey, actually right now, um, the job which I'm doing, where I'm applying whatever I've learned over the 4 years of doing competitive programming, that
Hmm.
right now takes more precedence, and I hardly get any time for doing competitive programming. So I left it there. There are a bunch of people who are actually still very active. I mean, because they love doing it, they're able to manage time better than I do. Um, but but I mean, uh, doing
I guess
cognitive programming when you're yeah, Utkarsh, please go ahead.
yeah, I guess it's in the start. Maybe it is a little difficult because you are new to a company and maybe you have a lot of work in the start. But when you
Right.
get comfortable in particular company and when you are used to the work, then I guess managing time is really comparatively easy. I guess you
Correct.
agree on.
Absolutely, absolutely. In my case, it was a personal choice as well. That I for some reason liked the problems that I was solving at Facebook as well as now at InterviewBit. I found them to be equally challenging, though with a very different flavor. And it made sense to solve this problem because nobody else was. If there was one less person solving a Codeforces problem, that is okay. But this problem required attention, so that's why I made my choice and then I stuck here. That being said, if you're an experienced person and you want to really get into competitive programming, it is going to take a lot of proper time management because in your job is going to take a lot of your time. And as students, we tend to do competitive programming almost full time. As I said, like I would spend like 12 to 14 hours in our computer lab just solving problems, one problem after the another. And then you
Hmm.
have company as well because there are two other people who are also very interested. So you get that additional motivation. All of those are missing when you are an experienced guy who is trying to do it alone. um, but if you are and if you're interested, a lot of respect for you. All the best. If you need any help, I mean, we're always here to help you out.
Yes. I mean, one tip or one suggestion I can give is that you can just create a group of people or group of your friends who are maybe experienced but are interested in CP, and maybe on weekends or on your holidays you can just sit one day and then do some questions. Maybe it will be fun for you guys. It will be a like fun event.
Right.
I mean, that will be a nice way to like catch up where you left off, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, one question which I guess many people have is that how to select that language. So Surbi says that is it important to start with C++ or Java is also fine? So, I mean, in the start, many people have this doubt, like which language to select, which language to use. So,
Correct.
sir, what is your advice on this?
So C++ has certain advantages because it is very fast. I mean, C++, they both were meant to be very fast. C, however, misses doesn't have most of the data structures inbuilt as a library, while C++ does. So C++ is a very, very popular choice. Um, Also, it's one of, it's not. I mean, so if you look at the way languages are defined, languages are classified as low level and high level. Low level being the languages where you have to almost specify everything. Even when you want to do A plus B, you have to specify how to do A plus B. And high level languages which sort of abstract everything out, and they give you a function and you just call the function and things are done. Um, C++ lies somewhere in between, so that while you don't have to go and like implement A plus B almost every single time, you're still able to understand what is happening. You don't end up in a situation where you just write the sort function and you never know what is happening behind the sort function. Or um, I mean, for example, one of the risks of starting with a very high level language, like let's say a Python or a Ruby, while it is very easy to learn, very easy to get started, a lot of times people do not understand what is happening inside when they write a single line function which almost does everything for them. Um, for example, the concept of number overflow, that does not even exist in Python, because Python is able to like automatically convert from integer to big integer as soon as your numbers grow. But when you're using C++, then you understand that every single variable that you're using has some amount of bytes allocated to it. That means it has only these many number of bits it can store. That means it has a range. Using very, very high level language kind of deprives you from that kind of learning, that kind of insight. So Java is also not very high level. So Java, it's okay to use Java. Java has a big integer library, but you have to specify when do you want to use a big int versus a normal integer, right? So Java is fine. C++ is also fine. If you're starting with competitive programming, I would, and like you're starting with programming in general, I wouldn't say directly start with a very, very high level programming language, just because there are these nuances and these intricacies that you will miss out on.
Yes, also I can say that if you start with C++ or Java, it will help you because many resources which are available online are also on C++ and Java only. Maybe some on Python as well. But if you start with some unusual language which is not popular and many people don't use it, then it is little hard to find resources for that particular language. I mean, I myself started with Java and I continued on Java, even though many people told me to switch to C++ because I liked it. The advantage in Java, the disadvantage in Java is that you have to write a lot. So everything, let's say in a set or a map, has a function defined to it. In C++, you have to write very less comparatively. But I like Java because if there is an error, it is very clearly shown. Let's say if there is an array index out of bound exception, it is clearly shown in Java. But in C++, I sometimes see that even if you like access some invalid index in array, it does not give you some sensible error. It gives you some random error, and then you start debugging what is the problem. So for this reason, I like Java over C++. But again, these two languages are really, really good to start with. I can say anyone you can select. Okay, one interesting question from Shruti again is that what makes to you keep on continuing with CP? How you got interested in CP? Is just because of Google or CP also makes you something else apart from Google? I guess it is for me. Yeah.
Actually, I'll answer some part of that.
Okay.
When I started with competitive programming, to be very honest, I did not even know that Google asks questions that are based on data structures and algorithms. It was purely out of interest. It was never for interviews. It was just a very happy coincidence that it helped with interviews. The purpose never was that let's do this because it's going to help in interviews. And the reason we were able to stick on for so long is because the goal wasn't interviews. If the goal is interviews, then you'll not be able to stick on for so long because you're not doing it purely out of interest. You're doing it for other reasons. And I was interested because I liked mathematics. I loved how like a lot of these problems uh, would have a huge overlap with maths, and I liked solving problems, and I that's what kept me going on for so long. That is why I said like competitive programming and interview preparation, they are two very different sets. Doing CP is an overkill. You probably can save a lot of time if you're just doing it for interviews.
Hmm.
um, do it if you really like it.
Yes, I mean, same. I mean, Anshuman sir correctly said it that if, for me also it was same. I mean, I never started CP because I wanted to get into Google or any company. I mean, I started in my first year end. So in first year, I guess many people don't even realize that they have to get a good job or something like that. And for fun, I started CP, and it was a really good coincidence that CP helps in interview preparation because that time we were enjoying solving problems. We solved some algorithms and we got like good knowledge of some things which are really really important and interesting. That was really really fun for us. I mean, taking part in competitions and getting a pocket money of our college was really one of the advantages. When you take part in competitions, you gain some prize money, which is not that very much, but for college students, even if you are winning some amount of money, then it really helps you, like, keep you motivated for certain things. I mean, in anything if you do in life, if you get some benefit out of it, even small benefits, that keeps you pushing. So that thing kept me going on, and I can say that it's not just because of Google that I did CP. CP also makes me something apart from Google. I mean, as I mentioned, because of my like being good in computer programming, the Google interviews were really easy for me. I mean, I've never imagined how Google interviews were. So when I received a call about Google interviews, I was a little nervous because I was not knowing how hard Google interviews will be. Because everywhere if you will just see that Google interviews are really hard to clear, and many people get rejected in the first round, second round, and so on. So I was a little nervous, but when I went there, I just the questions which were asked to me were comparatively easier compared to computer programming. So I guess CP really helped me in Google, but it was not for the purpose of Google. And I can say that this is one of the reasons why I was confident enough to leave Google, because I'm sure that if this interview process is same, then I can clear it anytime. I mean, if they are focused on algorithms, data structure algorithm, for computer programmers, it is very easy to clear interview level questions. This is what I can say. I mean, Anjuman sir also says the same. Like, for interview preparation, the strategy should not be CP, because CP is little over killing you if you are just wanting for interview preparation, right? I mean, Aviral also has the same question, that interview questions are very different. In what I have experienced compared to computer programming platforms like Codeforces as well, interview questions are all about implementation. So it is really connected. I mean, I
Uh,
find them connected because of the problem solving skills. Because if we do computer programming, we improve our problem solving skills. And if we go for any interview, the problem solving skills really, really matter to us. I mean, Anshuman sir will tell.
Right. I mean, so again, like talking about better companies, they usually not are not always only about implementation.
Hmm.
For example, a good company would never ask you to print a triangle of numbers, or print the numbers in this spiral order, and that's all.
Hmm.
It's not only about implementation; it's a little bit about problem solving as well. They'll give you a problem, and then they'll ask you to come up with a solution, and then like may write a code for it, right? So it's a combination of both. And as I said, like if you were to just consider, I mean, interview questions are supposed to be just a subset of competitive programming. It's the younger brother to the elder brother, which is that competitive programming. That's how to describe it.
One interesting question is for Anshuman sir. Where are other members of your ICPC team currently working?
So I went to ICM ICPC World Finals twice. The first time I went with Ajay Somani and Gaurav Agrawal. Gaurav Agrawal is currently working at Google, and right, he initially joined Facebook and then switched to Google. He's been there for a very long time now. He's working with the Google Chrome team.
Hmm.
And my other teammate, Ajay Somani, he was initially at Facebook, then he went to Airbnb, and then he's back to Facebook again on the Instagram team. He works on the newsfeed ranking of Instagram. The second time I went, Ajay Somani had already graduated, so there was another person with us, Rajat Goel. He joined Facebook along with me, and then now he's currently working at Dropbox.
I mean, all are at very good places. Okay, we have one question from Harsh, that I am in first year and three-star coder on Codechef. How should I prepare? Doing contests and of solving, or practicing questions only? So, sir, is there any defined strategy which is best for computer programming for first years?
Harsh, I would say in the first year, maybe focus more on learning concepts, learning and then sharpening on those concepts. So if you just maybe Google, you'll find there are a bunch of these platforms that talk about what should you know within a topic. What are the topics to know within a topic, and they will have some sample problems with it, like sample problem links either on Codechef or Spodge or any other website, right? What I would say is, like, initially maybe don't focus a lot on participating in contests to begin with, because it can be demoralizing, right? Like when you participate in a contest and you're not able to do well, then you start questioning why you're doing what you're doing. Maybe for the first year, just focus on like reading up on these topics, solving two, three problems from each topic. Once you get comfortable, because as you move up, you'll have to write very complex code, so you'll get comfortable writing code as well. Once you get comfortable, then start solving some previous contests just to see, like, assess where you are. Once you get comfortable with that, then start participating in the real contests.
Yes, I mean, that totally makes sense, because I can give you a real example that when I started with computer programming, basically what happened was I was in my first year and few of my friends were solving any contest of Codechef, and I just looked at them what they're doing. Let me try it myself. So I went to my laptop, I started that contest, and I was unable to solve any question for that contest. And I thought, like, it is very difficult. I mean, how people do it? Then later on, I realized that for this you need some practice, and then I started first practicing on maybe HackerRank, the practice domain. And then after that, after some practice, when I was doing that contest again, I was able to solve few questions. So solving just directly the contest, I guess, can be demoralizing. But again, if you like, if you are confident with yourself that you should start with contest and you know some basic things, I mean, knowing how much is not defined, because even if you know a basic, I can say one proper language, let's say C++ or Java, and you know all the functions on that, and you have some good problem solving skills, you can start with contest of maybe Codeforces Division 3, because they do not require any hard level data structure and lot implementation. But as again, basic knowledge is really, really important before you start any contest. That is, I can say. So, okay, let's take one last question. Survi has one question. So, how to suggest to get Ace in one topic in data structure like arrays? Then I found lots of questions on arrays and how to deal with it. As we mentioned, nowadays we have a lot of resources available. So, for one topic, we have a lot of, I mean, questions to solve. How to decide how much questions to solve? Uh,
Um, Again, like, the more you do, the better. But the one thing which Utkarsh said in the beginning, right? Like, don't confuse yourself by going on multiple platforms. Just maybe either refer to one resource which has filtered questions from a bunch of platforms, or maybe just stick to one or two platforms and then you're practicing questions from there. Um, and over a period of time, as you solve more and more questions, you'll yourself start realizing that questions have now become easy. Initially, when I started, I was taking, let's say, 50 minutes to solve a question or 2 hours to solve a question. Now I'm able to do it in 10 minutes. When that starts happening, when you start feeling that things are becoming easy, now then it's time to move on to a new topic.
yes. I
And the
mean,
answer differs from a person to person. I mean, there are few people who catch on very quickly. There are few people who take some time. It's just like
yeah,
gym, right? There's some people
yeah.
who just develop muscles faster. There's some people who take time. It's okay. That's fine. Just be at it.
Yeah. Yeah, just be consistent. I mean, do not feel like you cannot do it, because everyone can do something. Like, it takes time, a little more time compared to the others. But if you are practicing continuously and you are consistent, there will be a day when you will be very comfortable in any particular topic. I mean, sometimes what I can feel is when I was doing Codechef long, I got stuck in question for 4 days even. I mean, 4 or 5 days, I was only solving one question. So that can happen. I mean, that you can be stuck at a point of time, but you should be sure that one day or the other you will learn more and more, and you will become like better than what you are right now.
Also, it's
Okay.
very. I'll just, like, as an ending comment, I want to add, like, it is, as I took this analogy of the gym. It is very similar to gym, right? Like, it's not like you see these bodybuilders outside and then you go to gym one day and you return back as a bodybuilder. It doesn't happen in
Hmm.
one day.
Right.
It takes time, right? And it's a very gradual process. It happens slowly and slowly, but you get better every day. You improve a little every day. There is some teeny tiny muscle that you develop every day, which is not maybe visible to naked eye, but when I see you a month after going to gym almost on a daily basis, there is some visible difference, right? Then it starts becoming clearer. This is also very similar. Maybe on day one you feel like, hey, I'll study so much today that I'll just beat everybody else tomorrow.
Hmm.
That is not going to happen. In one day, it's not. Things are not going to change. Things will become better. Um, So be at it. I mean, it's just a very gym like mindset. You have to be at it little by little, almost every single day, be very consistent, and then one day will come when you'll see that you've suddenly started doing better than people who were doing better than you before.
Hmm. Yes, I mean, totally agree, because every day you do some progress, but that is not visible. As in the gym, I can, yes, it is totally similar to a person going to gym. But over a period of time, maybe after a month or 2 months, you will realize that you were not knowing certain things a month ago, and now you know those things. So maybe if you see some question based on those things, you will be able to solve them very, very easily. So I mean, that is one of the good point. And maybe this is the reason why people quit in the very beginning, because there are many people who start and then in few days they realize that I have not gained anything, or I am not enjoying it, or there is no profit from it, and they people maybe quit. So I get my advice is that you have to wait for a longer time, little longer time than few days. Then only you will get some output after of computer programming. Because like gym also, if you go for few days, it will not affect your body. First week is the warm up. Similarly, in CP, first month you can say is a warm up. Then you start learning a certain questions.
Right.
Shall we take one last question, or
Yeah,
is
we can take one last question. That's fine.
okay? So we have one question from Amit. Can you please tell computer programming ranking in Codechef Codeforces help to get referral? I mean, in my
Uh,
case, it was helpful.
okay, actually, so just think from a somebody who's hiring. Let's say you are the Amit, you are the owner of a company and you're hiring, and then there are like these 1,000 people who are applying to you. How
Hmm.
do you decide which resumes stand out? And people have different criteria for deciding that, right? Like it is possible I'm looking at people applying from a certain college,
Hmm.
and then like that becomes a differentiating criteria that makes you stand out.
Hmm.
Or which means like let's say if you graduated from IT Bombay, computer science, then I pick your resume. Or maybe you did some projects which were very impressive, or let's say you went to Google Summer of Code,
Hmm.
and that makes you stand out. Maybe you went and won certain hackathons, that makes you stand out. And very similarly, even competitive programming rankings in Codechef would also help you stand out. So there are many ways of standing out, which will only help you get past the first stage. The second stage, which is like once your resume gets shortlisted, once you've noticed this person, then you would want to talk to them, and then you want to figure out with them how good are they with just understanding the computer science fundamentals, how good are they with problem solving, how good are they with even just implementing what they know in a project, right? So, and if all of that falls in place, then I would say that, hey, actually I want to hire you, why don't you come and join us for the job. So the ratings definitely help. At the same time, they're not the only way to differentiate yourself. There could be 10 different ways of standing out from rest of the crowd. The process of interviews, however, focus a lot on uh, focus a lot on BS Alco for most bigger companies. At the same time, you should also make sure that you have done some amount of decent project work, so that you're not completely detached from the computer science world and like on how to develop things, because that is what you'll have to do on day one of the job. If you don't know anything, then it will take you time to catch up, and you won't be able to perform well. So everything is important. um,
Yes, I mean, as Anshuman sir mentioned, if there is certain thing in your resume that will help you stand out, it really, really helps. Because if I give my example, I was from Tier 3 college. I mean, my college was not recognized that much. I mean, I was not having anything extraordinary apart from computer programming in my resume. But because of my high ratings and my competitions and my ranks in those competitions, I got referral from lot of places. I mean, I got referral from like Facebook also. I mean, lot of places I got referrals, and I was able to interview in a lot of companies just because of those high ratings and good ranks in competitions. Because whoever I reached, maybe via LinkedIn or maybe via Facebook, I just showed them my resume, and based on the resume, they decided, okay, this guy is good enough to get at least go for the interview process. So if you have certain maybe high ratings, that will really help you to at least give get attention of someone to go to any interview process. I mean, I can say this really helps in that way. Okay, so Vikas is having one question. Shall we take one last question?
Sure.
I mean, okay, this is definitely last. Okay. I have 4.5 years of experience. If it is too late for me to start computer programming, I mean, I can say it is never too late to start computer programming. So, sir,
Yeah.
what is your advice? It is never too
Yeah,
late, right?
yeah, it's not too late. Again, it's just more difficult to manage with your work because now you can't do it full time, as we were saying in one of the earlier question. And one of the suggestions from Utkarsh there was that maybe try to create a group of people around you or friends around you who are also interested in very similar things. Try to do questions with them. Maybe try to compete with them.
Hmm.
Show off at certain times because that will keep you motivated, right? That
Hmm.
will you will want to do more just because. Uh, your friend is doing better, right? Exactly like gym. If you go
Hmm.
with to gym with two or three of your friends, then you want to go every day because you want to lift more weights than your friends do. Um, so maybe that could help. But yeah, it is not going to be very easy because
Hmm.
with experience, like you would have more responsibilities at your company and lesser time at your hand.
Hmm. Yes. I mean, I can also say the same. It will take like more efforts if you are of experienced, or like if you are doing a job, because you won't be able to give a lot of time. But you can easily like find time during weekends or maybe sometime when there is vacation. But you will not be able to do that much as you would have done in your college days. Okay, so I guess the session was really really helpful. Thank you, sir, for like all the good tips. I guess
Thank
it
you.
was really helpful for all the students. Guys, if you like the video, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and let us know if you need any particular like video. Then we will be really happy for you guys to come go live on that particular topic as well. So please subscribe to the channel and feel free to comment your feedback or maybe what next you want from us, maybe on computer programming or interview preparation, and we will be really happy to help you in whatever way we can. So thank you very much, guys, and
Thanks,
see you
guys. Thank
next
you so
time.
much. Yeah. Bye bye.
So, bye, guys.